carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are one of the macronutrients besides protein and fat. They are the body's main fuel source. So this is what our body uses to function every single day. And there are a bunch of different types of carbs. So sugar, this is naturally found in some foods and it's added in other foods. So an example of this would be in milk. You have lactose. That is a naturally occurring sugar, but the sugar that is in, let's say, ketchup is added. It's not naturally occurring. Someone adds that sugar to make ketchup. Then we also have starches. So many sugar units are bonded together that the body can digest slowly. So an example of this would be a starchy vegetable, such as a sweet potato. This is what's sometimes called a complex carb versus a simple carb. It takes our body a while to break it down just because of the way they're bonded together. This contributes to lasting energy versus a simple carb that your body can process very quickly. So we'll continue to talk about this a little bit. And fibers, these are my favorite as a dietitian. Many sugar units that are bonded together that the body cannot digest. So we need a lot of fiber in our diet. There are lots of plant sources of fiber. You've probably heard that fiber is good for you and you need to seek out more fiber. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But just so you know, carbs are not just sugar, right? There are many different types of carbs, including some of these ones that we want to seek more of, like fiber. So let's dive into fiber a little bit more deeply. The RDA, which is the recommended daily allowance, this is 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day. So that's a range there. It's a difference between men and women, but for the most part, you can kind of shoot for 30 grams of fiber a day. Most individuals only get 15 grams per day, if that, especially here in America. So we definitely need more fiber, and this is because fiber can reduce the risk of developing heart disease. It can lower cholesterol, and it also has a beneficial effect on diabetes and blood sugar, which we will be talking about. You also see fiber will increase your digestion, like bowel regularity. It slows down the actual digestion process and the absorption of the sugar found in those foods. And sources of fiber include fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. So, interestingly, fiber is not found in any animal products. They're only found in plant foods. So, you can pretty much bet that anytime you're eating plant food, you're getting fiber, but some foods have more than others. Okay, the question everybody everybody wants to know, are carbohydrates bad? So not all carbs are created equal. The quality matters here. So we talked a little bit about that in terms of the different types of carbohydrates, sugars, starches, and fiber. So all carbs do have sugar in them, but extra glucose is stored in the liver and the muscles. So when you're going about your day, you do need these carbs. You do need sugar to power your body. If you have a little extra, you're going to store that in your liver and in your muscles. And that is great. Your muscles need the sugar to actually, lift things and power your body. And your liver needs the sugar because that will contribute to kind of keeping an even blood sugar all throughout the day and night. So once that storage is full, then your extra glucose will be converted to fat. So this is why some people say, take it easy on the carbs, because if you do have too much, it will convert to fat. So this can interfere with weight loss and promote diabetes and heart disease. So it's not about eliminating all carbs in your diet, but it's about making sure you get enough of quality sources and then maybe focusing on some other foods as well. So, carbohydrates and blood sugar. Once consumed, carbs are broken down into individual glucose molecules. right? So when we eat any food that's formed of glucose, the glucose will break down and the glucose enters our bloodstream. Once it enters the bloodstream, it will raise your blood sugar. So this is what we often think of as uh, high blood sugar, right? This is really just because there's a high amount of sugar in the blood, just as simple as that. So right after you eat a high sugary food, let's say like a soda, not a diet soda, like just a Coca-Cola or something, that sugar will just very quickly enter your bloodstream because there's not a lot preventing it from being digested rather quickly. It's a simple carb. It just goes really very easily into our bloodstream. And then the pancreas produces insulin. And insulin is often thought of as the key to unlock the door to let glucose into the cells. So your glucose is powering through your body, all flowing through your bloodstream, and insulin will tell the cells to absorb the blood sugar for energy and storage purposes. Cells absorb that glucose in the bloodstream, and then because they've been absorbed into the cells in your blood, there's not a lot of glucose anymore. So that would be a lower blood sugar. Then if the bloodstream value becomes too low, the endocrine glands secrete glucagon, which is a hormone to dump stored glucose into the bloodstream. So this is something that happens, if you've noticed that maybe you haven't eaten in a while and you're starting to feel a little hungry. What happens is your body will say, hey, we need to release some of this glucose into the bloodstream to keep us going because we haven't eaten in a while. So that's why your body stores some glucose on deck, just in case we need it, right, to power through. Okay, blood sugar spikes. Blood sugar rises and quickly falls. So let's say you're eating let's say you have a bag of Skittles, for example, a very simple carbohydrate, not a starchy vegetable, no fiber there, just simple carbs. Your blood sugar will rise and it will quickly fall. You've likely felt this, right? After you eat candy or even a soda, you feel energized, you feel awake, and then all of a sudden you feel very tired. You will feel that low, that blood sugar low. You'll feel instant fatigue. You'll feel that hunger. And it may happen after eating. So needing a nap after a carb-rich meal, sometimes even a very heavy meal will cause you to feel a little bit sleepy. So the prevention of this blood sugar spike actually involves including fiber into your meal, water with your meals, and exercise after eating a meal. So I would think about this in terms of a graph. Let's say you just had an entire bag of Skittles. Wow, tasted so good. You're feeling great. You're feeling energized, right? Your blood sugar values are rising on that graph, going up, 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 up. Then give yourself 15, 20, 30 minutes. All of a sudden, you're starting to feel a little bit sleepy. That blood sugar value is falling, 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 falling. And it may even fall a little bit too low, right? It may fall a little bit too low. You may start feeling very tired because your body was just told, hey, there's sugar in the bloodstream, send out that insulin. And your body is overcompensating a bit to send out that insulin to lower that blood sugar. So you're feeling very, very sleepy and tired now. If you were to eat that same bag of Skittles and you were to pair that with maybe a chicken breast, a random meal, but let's use that as an example. You have some Skittles, but you also have chicken breast and maybe even some raspberries, really high in fiber. Now you've got more of a balanced plate. You've got some fiber, you've got some protein, maybe you have a big glass of water with that. You'll find that your blood sugar does not raise as high as it did when you were just eating the Skittles alone. So it will rise, and that's normal, and that's what we want because that's why we eat, to get our blood sugar to rise. But we don't want it to rise too much. So by pairing it with foods like fiber and water and even a little protein, you will blunt that blood sugar spike. Okay, so let's get into some high blood sugar symptoms. When you have a lot of blood sugar in your body, you will have increased thirst, frequent urination, could even lead to unintentional weight loss, fatigue, blurred vision, and irritability. Interestingly, some of these symptoms are also what you would experience if you had extremely low blood sugar too. So somebody who has reactive hypoglycemia, for example, would experience these on the high, and then they would experience these on the low as well, maybe with the added symptom of being very sleepy because of that blood sugar insane spike and then crash. And over time, repeated high blood sugar, this feeling all the time, this is what it feels like to have diabetes. You will experience that increased thirst, the frequent urination. That's your body's way of trying to flush out some of the sugar in your bloodstream and trying to dilute it a little bit. Okay, so back to how to control our blood sugar. It's likely that some of you have seen this image before. This is the healthy eating plate from Harvard School of Public Health. It is based on the My Plate by the USDA. This example shows how to eat a balanced plate. So you'll notice on the left, we have half of a plate of vegetables and or fruits. I always tell my patients this could be all vegetables, all fruits, half and half, some of each. Does not matter. The thing that's really important to me is that the portion of vegetables compared to the rest of your plate, or produce rather, is half. So that is a ton. That really is a lot. And most of us don't eat half of a plate of produce at every meal. But if we make this one simple change, you will see huge benefits, not only in controlling your blood sugar, but in your weight, in your heart health, and all of those things. So some patients find that fruit is easier to get, let's say, in breakfast, and vegetables are easier at lunch and dinner. But that's not always the case. So I give my patients free rein here. Half and half, some of each, all fruits, all vegetables, does not matter. Then you'll notice the other half of the plate is split up in half between whole grains and healthy protein. So it's important we stress whole grains here as opposed to refined grains. Whole grains are things like brown rice instead of white rice, or whole wheat bread instead of white bread, and things like that. Whole grains are important here because they actually have the whole grain is intact, meaning you will get some added fiber from that source of grain. So again, we want fiber to control our blood sugar, so this benefits us. The other fourth of the plate is healthy protein. So it's important here to choose lean sources of protein. And all of these things together lead up to that perfect balance of a balanced plate. This is really the magic formula to control your blood sugar. So this at every meal. So you're pairing these carb sources with fiber, protein, and or fat. This will help to slow down digestion and give a gradual raise in blood sugar. Remember, we talked about the Skittles are just going to send your blood sugar sky high and then come crashing down. By pairing it with some other things here, you'll actually see a slower rise and a slower fall, which is what we are going for. The other thing to consider is consistent meal times. So what this means is it doesn't necessarily mean you have to eat at the same time every day, but eating every few hours. So a lot of people find success with 6 small meals a day. That could mean a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then a mid-morning snack, mid-afternoon snack, and a after-dinner snack. Eating every few hours can really help to keep your blood sugar stable because you're never letting it get too low from not eating, which as dietitians in practice, we see all the time. Oftentimes we see people who don't eat, let's say they don't eat breakfast, and then it comes to lunchtime and they maybe will grab something small, and then it comes to dinner time and they're starving. So they overeat and they eat a ton. And then their blood sugar goes up, it comes crashing down, and then in the morning again, they're too full, right? They had that big meal the night before. And so it's a vicious cycle. Eating smaller, consistent meals will actually help to control that blood sugar. And then if you're really serious about controlling your blood sugar, and that's a concern you really take seriously, including around a 10-minute walk after a meal is a really great way to bring that blood sugar down post eating. What happens is your body is essentially using some of that glucose to operate, and so it pulls it out of the bloodstream. So those are the main tips to eat to control blood sugar. I highly recommend that if you take anything away from this presentation, by eating half of a plate of fruits or vegetables at every meal, you will see a huge difference in your health. All right, so what are the benefits of regulating blood sugar? Well, you get the decreased risk of developing heart disease, kidney disease, neuropathy, retinopathy, which are symptoms all of, diabetes. Once you're diagnosed with diabetes, these conditions become way more likely. Your risk for developing these conditions increases. You will also see an improvement in mood and symptom regulation. This is like, think of the Snickers commercial, right? When you're hungry, you start to act out and you start to be a little snippy. We've all experienced this. We need to have some food nearby, consistent, regular eating. Otherwise, we will see that dip in mood. Your body is like, hey man, I am starving. I need something. I need something quick. And so we can get a little snappy. Adequate fiber intake, again, hugely important in terms of regulating blood sugar. By doing that, you are also intaking enough fruits and veggies. Because fruits and veggies are major sources of fiber. And then you're also decreasing the risk of unintentional weight gain. And the reason for that, I'll just scroll back to this image for you. When we think about weight gain, a big reason, I should say, a big way to lose weight, and one that is not disputed in any way, is a caloric deficit. So if you are going to count calories and decrease your caloric intake throughout the day, you will see a loss of weight over time. And if we look at this image of the plate, half of the plate being vegetables and fruits, let's just say that's all broccoli, for example. If you ate half of a plate of broccoli every day for dinner, that would be so dense in fiber, right, which is very filling, but it's so low in calories that your stomach is getting very full. You're feeling the sense of satiety, but you're not using too many calories like you would if you were to, eat that portion of chocolate ice cream, for example. And by making it half your plate, you're also crowding out some of the room on the plate for some of these higher caloric items like protein, like whole grains. They're healthy for us, but they do have a caloric, uh, a pretty high calorie amount to them. So by creating half of that plate, you're kind of accomplishing so many different tasks at once that help with overall healthy eating. So you're decreasing the risk of unintentional weight gain here because fruits and veggies are low in calories and they're very healthy for you and very nutrient dense, but they will not, by eating a large portion of them, you don't risk weight gain. Okay, so how to actually add fiber. We know that fiber comes from fruits and veggies, so you want to have a source of fiber at all meals and snacks. So if you're eating a meal according to the plate method that I just showed you above, if you have half of your plate fruits or veggies, you're doing that, right? You're doing that. That's perfect. You are accomplishing that goal. If you're prioritizing fruits and veggies in your meals, you should also be thinking about it in your snacks, though. And I think that this is where a lot of people struggle. Snack time for a lot of us, especially growing up, you're given just a bag of either goldfish or Cheetos or some sort of potato chip, and that does not really have any sort of nutrition, but definitely not enough staying power, this like fiber, to power you through anything. So I would recommend, let's say you choose an apple and then pairing that appropriately. So, adding a source of protein and or fat to that. So an apple plus peanut butter, or an apple plus a handful of almonds, or carrots plus hummus, or maybe you do whole grain crackers plus cheese. That perfect combination will give you a snack that is not only healthy, but filling. Add some nuts and seeds or dried fruits as a topping to a salad. These are all very high fiber foods. I love adding dried cranberries and pistachios or sunflower seeds to a salad. I will do that every time I make a salad. And then switching to whole grains. So using the brown rice, using whole grain pasta, whole wheat bread, whole grain tortillas, choosing quinoa, barley, rye, farro, these grains that they're the whole grain, the grain is intact, they have high fiber content. And then adding in beans and legumes. I I don't eat a lot of meat. Some of our meals are meat focused, but some of them are very vegetarian. And I always encourage that for any patient out there to switch up your sources of protein. Doesn't mean you have to go vegetarian. I am not vegetarian, but kind of switching up adding a little variety to your protein intake will encourage you to eat more beans and legumes. And again, plant foods have fiber, whereas animal products don't. So it's always a good idea to just kind of add this every now and then. Maybe it's a meatless Monday once a week. Maybe you figure that, eating breakfast is actually pretty easy for you to eat with meat free. Or lunch is a great time to add seeds and beans and dried fruits to your salad. That would be a great way to add in more fiber. Just to give you a rough idea, all fruits and vegetables have fiber, but if you're really going to prioritize some fiber-packed items, I would seek out raspberries. Raspberries compared to blueberries, it's like 4-to-1 amounts of fiber. Any type of beans, crazy amount of fiber. Whether it's, even like canned baked beans, tons of fiber. Yes, there's some sugar in the actual liquid that it's in, that delicious, yummy sauce, but the fiber will help to balance the blood sugar there. So always seeking out fiber whenever possible. All right, and how to add protein. So another way to keep that blood sugar spike blunted is to add a source of protein at all meals and snacks. So if we think back to the plate method and that image, we had a quarter of our plate protein. Now, for a lot of people, let's say you go to a steakhouse, you're not eating a quarter of a plate protein. You're eating a jumbo serving dish size of protein, right? A 22-ounce steak. Now, that's not what I'm talking about. A good rule of thumb is anywhere between 3 and 6 ounces of protein at a meal. But you want to choose some like leaner sources of protein, such as like a tuna, or maybe a shrimp is a good lean source of protein, chicken, versus these higher fat sources of protein, like red meats. Use different types of nuts and seeds as toppings. So again, nuts and seeds, they are plant food, they are plant-based protein, and they have a lot of fiber in them. So you can kind of get a double whammy by adding nuts and seeds whenever possible. While they do have fat as well, they're healthy sources of fat, and it's usually pretty minimal. You can easily overdo it if you were to eat, a big cereal bowl side of almonds or something, but you'll likely get a stomach ache before you get there. You can't usually overdo it that much. So make sure you're adding protein, make sure you're adding fiber, and make sure you're adding produce. So creating these balanced meals and snacks. So you're going to use whole grain bread at lunches and snacks. If you typically eat a sandwich, a simple swap is to do whole grain bread instead of white. There are many types of whole grain bread out there that maybe you're not accustomed to the taste of whole grain bread, there are many types of bread out there that actually are deceptively whole grain, so they can fool kids and picky eaters alike. Whenever possible, use the whole fruit versus juice. Whole fruit like an apple, right? Just eating an apple off the actual core has some fiber in it, but if you were to juice it, just do apple juice, all the stuff that's left in your juicer, that's all that fiber. Now, juice is fine, and juice can be a part of a healthy meal, a healthy diet, but just make sure, you're not doing that exclusively with your fruit, because then you won't be seeking out that fiber. Swapping potatoes for beans and brown rice and quinoa. Even substituting, starchy forms of vegetables like sweet potatoes, and corn. These can all be healthy forms of fiber in your diet. And then, whenever possible, pairing protein and carbs at snacks. So, again, you're doing an apple plus peanut butter, you're doing carrots plus hummus. So, really, I like to think about it as protein plus fiber. Carbs are fiber, right? Remember that from the beginning? So, apple plus plant based source of protein, peanut butter. Carrots plus plant-based source of protein, hummus. Maybe you do whole grain crackers plus cheese, source of protein there. So we're always creating balance, never just grabbing one single item, whether that's at a meal or a